The drama surrounding Caitlin Clark's rise has officially crossed into territory the WNBA has never experienced before. And this time, it has nothing to do with points, assists, or wins on the court. It is about money, power, visibility, and the brutal reality of how the modern sports economy actually works. When Sportico released its latest highest-paid female athletes report, the fallout was immediate and explosive. Caitlin Clark sat comfortably near the top at a staggering $16.1 million. And in one single data drop, the entire conversation about who truly drives women's basketball was settled in cold, undeniable numbers. That this was not a subtle milestone. It was a seismic shift. Clark did not just top the WNBA. She separated herself so completely that no other WNBA player even appeared near her on that side of the list. That is what made the reaction so intense. For years, the league has tried to convince fans that multiple stars carry equal weight. That narrative collapsed the moment the earnings were made public. Clark's income dwarfed her league salary to the point that the WNBA paycheck itself almost became irrelevant. Her financial empire exists almost entirely outside the league structure, driven by corporate demand, brand trust, and mainstream appeal. What makes this moment especially jarring is context. Clark barely played this season. Injuries limited her to just 13 games. Yet even while sidelined, her market value exploded. Speaking engagements alone reportedly reached 6 figures per appearance. Corporations are paying her not to shoot jumpers, but to stand on a stage and speak to executives about leadership, pressure, and building success in competitive environments. That kind of demand does not happen by accident. It happens when an athlete transcends sport and becomes a cultural figure companies believe can move markets. The endorsement portfolio explains everything. Nike locked Clark into a historic deal that reset expectations for women's basketball. Gatorade aligned itself with her youth appeal and authenticity. State Farm leaned into her family-friendly reliability. Wilson Sporting Goods positioned her as someone who could genuinely influence purchasing behavior. These brands are not emotional. They are strategic. They invest where return is measurable, where audiences grow, and where association improves their image. Clark checks every one of those boxes. By contrast, the absence of A'ja Wilson from the list landed like a thunderclap. Not because she lacks basketball credentials, but because it exposed a harsh truth the league has tried to avoid. Basketball excellence alone does not guarantee commercial dominance. Wilson's frustration has been visible for years, but this moment crystallized it. Despite MVP's championships and accolades, the business world did not follow. That gap between on-court success and off-court demand is what this report laid bare. The difference is not race. It is not conspiracy. It is brand economics. Corporations do not pay for resume. They pay for reach. They pay for audience expansion. They pay for ambassadors who bring positivity, safety, and growth potential. Clark has demonstrated all three at scale. Her presence increases television ratings, merchandise sales, and cross-industry interest. Her participation in events outside basketball draws attention from people who do not even follow the WNBA. That is rare. That is valuable. Wilson's endorsement footprint remains narrow by comparison. Her major partnership is with Nike, and even that relationship came after years of public campaigning. Beyond that, the crossover appeal simply has not materialized. There are no widely promoted keynote appearances at major corporate conferences. No flood of brand announcements from outside basketball. No evidence of the kind of demand Clark commands without effort. That reality is uncomfortable, but it is not debatable. The speaking fee comparison tells the clearest story. Clark is booked as a headline attraction for business summits, leadership conferences, and corporate events. These organizations advertise her presence because it sells tickets. They view her as someone executives want to hear from, not just a player fans want to watch. There is no comparable public trail of Wilson commanding similar platforms or fees. In business, absence of evidence is evidence. This divide did not appear overnight. It traces back years. During Clark's historic college run, criticism followed her that focused less on individual brilliance and more on team outcomes. The championship argument became a convenient way to dismiss unprecedented impact. Yet context mattered then, just as it does now. Clark carried a program without elite recruiting depth to back-to-back national title games. Wilson competed on rosters loaded with future professionals. Both paths produced success, but only one demonstrated the ability to elevate an entire ecosystem. That distinction carried into the professional era. Clark entered the league and instantly altered attention economics. Arenas sold out. Viewership spiked. Sponsors followed. The league expanded its footprint because casual fans tuned in for her. Wilson, despite years in the spotlight, never triggered that kind of shift. That is not a judgment of talent. It is a measurement of influence. As Clark's visibility grew, tension followed. Social media campaigns emerged. Comparisons intensified. Claims about equal speaking fees surfaced without supporting evidence. Narratives shifted toward grievance rather than growth. Meanwhile, Clark continued doing what corporations reward most. She stayed positive. She avoided controversy. She embraced opportunities across industries. She built bridges instead of burning them. When Time named Clark Athlete of the Year, the reaction revealed the core difference between the two approaches. One response framed success as shared progress for women's sports. The other framed it as something taken unfairly. Corporations noticed, executives noticed, and the market responded accordingly. The Sportico list did not create this divide. It simply documented it. Clark's $16.1 million is not symbolic. It is transactional proof of value. It shows where companies place their confidence. It shows who expands markets instead of just competing within them. And it explains why no other WNBA player appeared alongside her on that list. This is why the conversation about who is the face of women's basketball no longer requires debate. Faces are chosen by audiences. Icons are chosen by culture. And leaders are chosen by markets. Clark occupies all three spaces simultaneously. She is not just the most visible WNBA player, she is one of the most influential figures in basketball. Period. The uncomfortable truth for the league is that pushing narratives cannot override economics. You cannot manufacture crossover appeal. You cannot force corporations to invest where returns do not exist. And you cannot tear down the one player growing the sport while expecting the business world to reward it. Clark's rise is not an accident. It is the result of talent, timing, temperament, and trust. Wilson's absence from the list is not punishment. It is a signal that branding matters as much as banners, that positivity outperforms grievance, and that building something bigger than yourself ultimately pays more than fighting for attention within shrinking lanes. Now the question turns to you. Does this Sportico report finally settle who truly drives women's basketball in the modern era? Is the gap between Caitlin Clark and the rest of the league about talent, or about approach and marketability? And can the WNBA learn from this moment, or will it continue pushing narratives the business world has already rejected? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like if this breakdown helped make sense of the numbers behind the noise, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the business side of women's professional basketball.